just go to the PPT. So in the last session, we've looked at how you can set up your Jenkins, how you can log into the Jenkins. And then, or rather, we start off with your users. So we looked at how you can create your users, how you can log into the user accounts, and also how you can create roles. You can set the permissions. So different things. How that can be. So basically, sharing your Jenkins with other users. How we can do that. We have looked at that. Then we've also discussed about your plugins. So Jenkins is heavily dependent on plugins, right? So anything you want to do on Jenkins, it's gonna be plugins. So we have looked at that. I also showed you how you can install new plugins and all those things. And then we started off with your job. So for now we have started off with a freestyle job. So freestyle is very basic way, but essentially at an organization level, you may not see people using it, or at least in our case, in my project, it's a big no to go with the freestyle project. We don't generally recommend using the freestyle projects. But anyways, just so you understand, we looked at how you can create your freestyle project and how you can run that job. We have looked at that. Let me just validate this. Okay, so it's starting. We'll give it some time. Then we looked at how you can integrate with Git, right? So we had a Maven project which was there in Git. So we told Jenkins to pick up the Maven project from Git and then build the package for us. So we looked at that integration. We also looked at your hooks, how you can automatically trigger the Jenkins job. So every time we push some changes to GitHub, it should automatically trigger the Jenkins job and do the build for us. And that is where we had stopped. The next thing we're going to look at is your environment variables. Now, if you want to pass any common variables to the server or to your job, we can do that. All right. So we call that as your environment variable. So this environment variables will be used when the job is running. Okay. And generally, these are your variables which you don't want to save anywhere. If you don't want to hard code any data, especially your credentials, we can make use of your environment variables for that. So let's say, for example, we have an image, a Docker image, or let's say GitHub credentials for the sake of example. So, let's say we'll go to our GitHub and let's see if I have a private repo. I guess this is a private repo. Okay, so this is a private repo. Okay, so let me take this repo and we'll integrate this with our job. We're not going to do anything with this job, but we'll just integrate. We'll try integrating it. Okay, so here, let me change this to this repo, and the branch would be the master branch in this case. Okay, so you can see here, it's already telling that, hey, fail to connect to this. Why? Because it's a private repo. So we need to pass the credentials for this, right? So what we can do is, instead of hard coding this anywhere, we can make use of your environment variables. And here also you can say this build environment. You have the option as well. So one option is we can add your credentials here. So how do we do that? We go to add Jenkins. And then what do you want to add? So in our case, we want to add a username with password. So what's your username? So in my case, this is the username. And what's your password? So we can generate a token for this. So let's go here. We'll go to settings. We'll go to developer settings, and then personal access tokens, classic, and we'll generate a new token for my Jenkins. So let me quickly give this. So this will be 161.576. So let's say this will be my Jenkins job, and let's expire this in maybe 7 days, okay, for the sake of example. And we'll give full example. Generally at an organization level, we won't do this unless you want to have very sensitive jobs. So if you want to rotate, then you'll be setting an expiration. But in our case, at least, we don't set the expiration. So let me select all this. So I'm basically giving full access, and we'll generate this token. So now I will take this token and we'll give it to the in place of password. So let's call this as GitHub threads and add. So this, once you create that, it will be available here, and we'll select that. So this, now since now you can see it's gone. So this is one way at an organization level. This is something that we very commonly follow. It's always a private repo that we use at an organization level. We don't make use of a public repo, and you'll always pass the credentials. Now, let's say you want to push image to Docker Hub. Now, before you push, you need to build that image. So assuming we have an image, all right? Now, before you push the image, you'll need to log into the Docker Hub. So maybe I can give an instruction. So here's something like logging into the Docker Hub account. Then just to make it a little good, and then we'll pass your Docker command. So Docker login, what username you want to use. So we'll pass variable, and then what password you want to use. So this will be --password. If you're not sure of this, you can definitely validate that. So in the server where you have installed your Docker, you can go there and you can validate what will be the right command. Okay, so let me show that. So that will not work. So I have Docker. So Docker login --help. So you can see --username, which takes the username, and then --password, which takes the password. Okay, and that is what I am passing here. But then where's the value? The value, we will pass it as an environment variable. So either you can store the environment variables here specific to this job only, or you can make it global, meaning you can make your variables local, or you can make it global. If it's local, you can go to manage Jenkins. Sorry, if it is global, you can go to manage Jenkins, go to system, and then come on. And here you should be able to see. Let's find that. Okay, so you can see here this one, environment variables, and you can add. So what do you want? So you can start adding your variables. So remember the variables that we have created here. Oh, wait, okay. So this will be the variable name. So we'll give the variable name and the value. So in my case, this will be the value. We'll add one more variable, which will be this one, and then the respective value. So this becomes a global environment variable. So now let me run this job. Okay, so let's see what this will do. So build now, and this will start triggering executing the job. So build number 6, and this has failed. So let's see why this has failed. Okay, this is because of the Maven thing. So I'll have to update the job to remove the build step. So I don't want to do this, okay? Because remember, we have changed the repo and it does not have any Maven project. Again, it has failed. Oh, sorry, there's one more thing. There's one more thing. So I have one here as well. So build now, and it should start build number 8. There's my 8, and I'm getting a permission denied error. Okay, so I mean it's working, but then it is throwing me an error that hey, I'm not able to access this. So what I'll do is I will go and update the permissions for this. So chmod 777 to this. Okay, and then let me rebuild this job. So we'll go back and again build this. And now you see I get a green, and you can see it says login succeeded. So essentially it has used the username and the password that you have passed as an environment variable. But you can see this is the problem. It is clearly showing me the username and password, and that can be a problem when users who should not have access to that, they're able to see that, right? So you can obviously mask it, right? But you get the idea, right? So this is not the one. So I guess that's the one. Maybe let me try that. Okay, it is still showing. So there's an option. I don't remember it on top of my head, but you can definitely mask it. Now the other option we have is, now maybe let's say that credential is only for one job. So instead of making it global, we can make it local only to this job. So what I can do is I can pass here. So build environment, use secret text or files, and I can add my username and password here as well. So this will be the user variable. Okay. This will be the password variable. This will be the password variable. And then which credentials do you want to map with this? So we'll add a new one because this is not the right one. So let's say my username would be this, and then my password. So let's call this as Docker creds, and we'll add this, and we will map that one. And let me save this and build this once again. So this is my build 11, and you can see now the password is masked. So this means it is picking it from my local variable and not the global variable. Likewise, if you have any variables, you can definitely pass that, and you can not hard code any of your data. This is where we can make use of your variables. Questions?
No, sir. Rabi, in the script, when we build the job, so how do we get to know whether we are built from the local or the global?
Yeah, so the I would say, what do I say? The flow is it will first check in the local. Okay. If the variables are there in the local, it will simply pick it from that. If it's not there in the local, then it will check in the global.
Okay, but I cannot find out from the script, right? Whatever the result it is showing here.
No, but here in this case, I can clearly tell you that this is picking from the local, because if you see the password is hidden. If I look at the previous build, it showed me the password as well.
Okay. Okay.
Because this came from my global variables.
Okay. Can we also declare multiple variables?
Oh yeah, sure. You can declare as many variables you want. So
but while running the job, how will it take?
You need to pass it in your script.
Okay.
You need to call those variables in your script.
Okay, got it.
For example, let's say Docker build -t and then $image and then your dot. So here again, if you see, I'm declaring one more variable. I'm calling another variable, and I need to declare this variable and the value as well. So maybe I don't know if it has a. So this is all for your sensitive data. Okay. So I can declare this variable in the global variables and it will pick the value.
Understood, Ravi.
So that's your variables. Next, let's talk about your parameterized projects. Now, parameterized projects is something that is very commonly used at an organization level. And this is mainly used when you want to make your job user friendly. So let's say, for example, I create a job which will build an image, tag that image, and push it to Docker Hub. For example, I create a pipeline for that. Now, I want to remove the dependency so that anyone can run their job. They can give the image name they want, and then the credentials they want, and then where they want to push it. I can make use of your parameterized jobs for that. One. Second thing, another use case I can give you is, let's say you have 4 different deployment servers, right? Now, instead of creating 4 different jobs, I can create one single job. But then I can give the option to the user to select where they want to deploy the job. That's where I can make use of your parameterized jobs. We can also make use of this to pass any sensitive data like credentials, like let's say the Docker Hub credentials or the GitHub credentials, right? So if you want to make your job user friendly, if you want to make it customizable, we make use of your parameterized jobs. So let me show you an example for this. So we'll create a new job and let's call this as parameterized job 1. So for now, again, we'll go with freestyle. And okay. So this is an example for parameterized project. And this option you see, this project is parameterized, we'll select this. And then what are the parameters you want? So choice, credentials, file upload, password, string, what exactly do you want to pass? So let's say, we'll go with the choice. Obviously, there are many more things. Once there are plugins that you can install and you'll get more options, but by default, these are the options you get. In addition to this, there are many other options that you can select. There's something known as active choice parameter. We have active choice reference parameter. We have a node parameter. So there's a lot of plugins available for different use cases. Okay. So choice parameter. So let's say Maven build server. Okay. So where do you want to build? So let's say server 1. Let's say server 2, server 3, server 4, server 5. So we have 5 servers to do our build. So we'll say select the server where you want to run the Maven build and create artifacts. We'll add one more choice param for package deploy server. So where do you want to deploy this? So let's say deploy 1, deploy 2, deploy 3. And then we'll say select the server where you want to deploy the Maven artifacts. Then let's say I'll add a string parameter. So string parameter. So this would be for Docker image name. So what's the default value? You have the option of giving a default value, something like let's say default image. So if the user does not give anything, this will be the name of the image. So we'll say please provide the name of the image that you want to build using the Docker file. Then one more parameter, let's say for your password. Okay, so this will be your Docker Hub password. So default value, we won't give anything, and we'll say please pass the password for the Docker Hub account. So Likewise, you get the idea, right? So likewise, so I can also give a string. So this will be, let's say, Docker Hub username, and I can say please pass the username for the Docker Hub account. So for now, let me just save this, okay? And now you'll see this option called build with parameters. Earlier we had just build now. So if you're creating a parameterized job, you'll see this option, build with parameters. So when you click on this, the parameters that we have created, you'll be able to see all those things over here. So you can see Maven build server, package deploy server, Docker image name, Docker Hub password, Docker Hub username. So you can pass this, you can choose. So where do you want to build this? Let's say I want to build this on server 3. Where do you want to deploy this? I want to deploy this on server 1. What's the Docker image name? So let's call this as Maven image, let's say version 2.0. What's the password for the Docker Hub account? You can definitely change this. So I can give the password. What's the username? And then when I click on build, all these options I can use in my job. Getting an idea?
Yes, Ravi.
Yes.
So now how do you refer this in your job? All these are your variables. So these things that you see, all these are your variables. So you can simply call them in your job. So something like, let's say, let's go to configure, and you know what, let me create one more so I can easily refer those variables. So we'll add a shell step. So let's have echo the package will be built on, and then we are going to call the variable. Where's that? Okay, so this will be the variable. Then echo, or I can also use a print if I don't want to use echo. Color has changed, so I guess it's not there. Yeah, yes, it's not there, so I'll go with echo only. So the package will be deployed on the server, and again we will call this variable. So we're just calling those variables, and echo the image name will be then the image variable name. So likewise, so now let me save this, and just for sake of example, I'll build this. I'll just go with the default ones that I have, build now, and we will see that the job will refer the value. So you can see the package will be built on server 1, the package will be deployed on deploy 1, the name of the image would be default image. Obviously these are not your real instructions, but if you pass the real instructions, we would be able to take the values and execute those on the Jenkins job. This is basically a parameterized job. So whenever you want to make a job user-friendly, customizable, reusable, we can go with the parameterized jobs. Questions?
No, Ravi.
I'm having Ravi. If we are having a 4 Tomcats and we want to deploy any of that, we can use these parameterized jobs.
Definitely. See, whenever you have a requirement of choosing,
Okay.
right, you can go with this option, wherein when you're building the job, you can choose.
Okay, like Tomcat 1, Tomcat 2, Tomcat 3, and whatever the packages are there in the by default images, we can refer the file like war file or class file.
Yeah, definitely. Again, you can add a param for that.
Servers.
You can add a param for that, whether you want to deploy a var package or what package you want to deploy.
Okay.
Right? So yeah, I mean, whenever you want to give a choice, you have an option like, hey, I have multiple things, but I should be able to select whenever I'm running the job. You can go with parameterized options, jobs for that. All right. I'll come back to this in some time. Next thing we're going to look at is a Jenkins view. Now, this Jenkins view is simply changing this particular view. So whatever we're seeing here, so this is the default view that we get, which is the list of jobs you have. You can obviously customize this the way you want it, which is basically a Jenkins view. So views in Jenkins allows you to organize your jobs and then content into tabbed categories, which are displayed on the main dashboard. Now here by default, all the jobs are present. But then let's say you have few jobs, like you have few Docker jobs, you have few Ansible jobs, you have few Maven jobs, and you want to categorize them. You can do that. So you can see this plus symbol here. When I click on that, I can create this. So let's say we'll call Maven jobs. So what's the type of view? So let's say we'll go with the list view and create this. So this will show all the Maven jobs. Okay. And then you can choose the jobs that you want to add to this view. So as of now, we have only 2 jobs. So let's say I'll go with this one and select that. So I have Maven jobs. Likewise, let's say we have Docker jobs. So again, we want to go with the list view, create, and then with jobs. So let's say I want job 1. So obviously you can select multiple jobs, but now you can see. So by default, you can show all the jobs. But then if you want to see only certain jobs, like let's say I want to see only the Docker jobs, you can go to this, which will show only the Docker job. Or if you go to the Maven, it will show only the Maven job. So this is one way to categorize your jobs. So this can be useful when you have like hundreds of jobs and it can be difficult to navigate through those jobs. Then we can make use of this. The other thing you have is you can also change this. Now this, we call this as a list view. We have a plugin that we can install, which can be used to change the view itself. Okay, so let's go to plugins. And I think that was build view plugin. View. Yeah, this one, build monitor view. Okay, so let me install that. So that's done. Now I can go and modify this. So let's say, how do I modify this? My views. Okay. Okay. And let me see. I guess it's not here. It's not here. So let me delete this and we'll create a new one. So I'll create a new one. Can you see this one? This is where it shows. So Docker jobs. So build a monitor view, create, and then we can select your jobs. And okay. So I mean, see, this will also show you the jobs, but slightly differently. That's all. So if I go to Docker jobs, this is the view I will see, not the list view, but this is the view we get. So this is basically a Jenkins view. So Maven, this is we are getting a list, whereas Docker, it will show. So I have only job 1, but if you have multiple jobs, this will, the size will decrease. So this will show in terms of boxes. So you'll have job 1, job 2, job 3, job 4, and then so on. So it's just a view, for you to visualize your jobs. That's all. Questions?
No, sir.
No, Rabbi.
Okay. The next thing I want to talk about is a Jenkins pipeline. So, so I told you that there are different ways that you can work with your Jenkins, right? One is obviously you can make use of your freestyle project, which is what we've been using now. But at an organization level, we don't really recommend that. So in that case, what do? We make use of your pipelines. So what are pipelines? Pipelines are simply again, these are your jobs. So let's say, you have a use case wherein you want to create 3 jobs. Instead of creating 3 jobs, we can create one single job and we can create a pipeline for that. Okay, so your Jenkins pipeline, it is simply your continuous delivery pipeline. So we can use this to create a continuous delivery pipeline, but we make use of your code for this. We don't use the UI, we write a code for that. So Jenkins pipeline, it is a suite of Jenkins features installed as plugins, which enables implementation of continuous delivery pipeline, which are automated processes for getting software from source control through deployment to your end users. So every change to your software goes through a complex process on its way to being released. And this process involves building the software in a reliable and repeatable manner, as well as progressing the built software through multiple stages of testing and deployment. So for this, we make use of a file called Jenkins file, and this is where we will be writing the pipeline code. So this is a text file that stores your pipeline, but in the form of a code. Now we can either store this Jenkins file within the job, or we can also keep it in a repo and we can take it from there. Now this enables developers to access, edit and check the code at all times. And this Jenkins file, it is written in Groovy language, more like a Java. It's a Groovy language. So this Jenkins file, it is also known as your pipeline as a code. So basically we'll be making use of your code to write the pipeline. So Jenkins pipelines can be defined using a text file called Jenkins file. And you can implement pipeline as code using Jenkins file, and this can be defined by using a domain specific language, which in this case is your Groovy. So with Jenkins file, you can write steps needed for running a Jenkins pipeline. So what are the benefits of this? You can request pipeline for all requests with just one single Jenkins file. So you can have hundreds of steps, and all of this can be put together in one single file. You can also review the code in your pipeline. You can audit your Jenkins pipeline, and this will be the singular source of your pipeline, and then this can be modified by multiple users. And Jenkins file can be defined by either the web UI or with a Jenkins file. Now, when we talk about your Jenkins file, there are two types you have. You have the declarative pipeline, you have the scripted pipeline. I'll talk about that more. But why you should be using Jenkins pipeline? So this is implemented because a pipeline is implemented as a code. There are multiple people who can edit and modify or execute the pipeline process. Your pipelines are more robust. So if your server undergoes any unforeseen restart, the pipeline will be automatically resumed. So let's say your pipeline, you started a job, it was running, but then something went wrong with the destination server. Once the destination server comes back up, the pipeline will start automatically. You can also pause the pipeline process and make it wait to resume until there's an input from the user. And Jenkins pipeline supports big projects. You can run multiple jobs and even use pipeline in a loop. Now, there are a few important concepts that you should know when we talk about your pipeline as a code. The first thing we have is your pipeline. So this will be the first level when you're writing the Jenkins pipeline. So this is a set of instructions given in the form of code for continuous delivery and consists of instructions needed for the entire build process. With pipeline, you can build, test, and deliver the application. Then you'll specify the node on which machine do you want to run the job. So, Jenkins supports your master slave concept. We'll talk about that later on. So the machine on which Jenkins runs is called a node. A node block is mainly used in scripted pipeline syntax. And then you define the stage, like stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, and then so on. So it contains a series of steps in a pipeline. That is, the build step, the test, the deploy processes all come together in a stage. Generally, a stage block is used to visualize the Jenkins pipeline process. And then within the stage, we have your steps. So steps is your singular task. So every task, we call it as a step. So a step is nothing but a single task that executes a specific process at a defined type. A pipeline involves a series of steps. This is an example of your scripted pipeline. So if your pipeline code begins with the keyword node, this will be your scripted pipeline. Always remember, if you are starting your pipeline code with the word node, it's a scripted pipeline. And if you have pipeline, that's your declarative pipeline. Okay. Obviously, there are a few more changes, but this is the main difference you will find. Now, in this case, if you see, I've defined some steps. So let's say node, and then let me create a new one, and we'll put this in Groovy. groovy. There's my groovy. So node, and then we define your stage. So let's say this will be build the Maven package. And then we'll add a step for this. So what do you want to do? So I want to run the Linux commands. If you're running this on a Linux machine, we use sh. If it's on the Windows machine, we use bat. So we'll first do a clean, and then we will do a install. Then we can have one more stage that will be like push the package to the S3 bucket, and then we can have the command for that. So AWS S3 copy, then your source and your destination. Then I can have my stage, let's say delete the old array package from Tomcat, and then we can say something like remove and then your destination. So from where you want to delete this. Then we can say stop the Tomcat process, and then the instructions to stop the process. Then copy the new package to Tomcat, and again I can use sh AWS S3 copy, and again we'll give the source and destination, and then finally we'll do a start the Tomcat, and again we'll give the instruction. So this becomes your pipeline as a code. Does this make sense?
Yes,
Yes, Ravi.
Like I said, at an organization level, this is something that is very commonly practiced. So this is your scripted pipeline. The same thing we can write in your declarative pipeline. So declarative pipeline, like I said, the first thing we do is we specify pipeline. That means it's a declarative pipeline. Then we specify the agent. So agent is on which machine you want to run this job. So for now, any means any machine that is available. Then your stages, and within this we'll have your stage. So maybe let's say we will reuse this, and then within this we'll have your steps. So let's say this one. Okay, then now let's say we'll have another stage, and then we'll have your steps, and then your instruction. So we follow this pattern in your declarative pipeline. So the difference, if you see, one is obviously this, we begin with pipeline, and here we begin with node. We also specify your agent. We have stages. Within stages we have steps, stage. Within stage you have your steps, and then the instructions. So this becomes one stage, this is another stage, and then so on. That's your declarative pipeline. Questions with this?
No, Ravi.
I'll stop here. I'll show you an example for this tomorrow. Okay, and yeah, I'll show an example for this tomorrow, and then a few more things which we'll discuss. Okay.
Sure, Ravi. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, guys. I'll see you.